Welcome to the first ever NHL Power Rankings. You guys requested it, so this is how I see the NHL right now. And I'm recording this after November 2nd's 2 NHL games. Now, I've got some pretty major caveats with this list. First of all, I only get to see a limited amount of games. I haven't even got to see every team play it, so if you feel like your second line center is having a great year and I don't realize, you're probably right. Also, with this list, I've of course considered a team's recent play, but I'm also trying to really bring in how good I think the team is overall. So my list probably has Philadelphia a lot lower than some others. And again, this is just my opinion very early on in the season. You guys will disagree with me, and that's the fun part. Let me know what you think down below. And yeah, the editing for this is going to be a bit iffy. Hopefully I can get a better setup moving forward. But at number 32, I was between the Ducks and the Sharks. These are teams that I've been really unimpressed with having watched. Carlson obviously has been a nice story for the Sharks. And even though Anaheim did win the head-to-head matchup, they're scoring so little that I've got to put them at the bottom. Still, they've got fun players. At 31, then, we have the Sharks. 30 is Columbus. I haven't got to see them play much, but they've gotten beat badly now by Arizona, the Bruins, and the Devils. Their underlying stats and their basic stats are just not good, so 30th is where they'll end up. Another team whose scoring I'm seriously worried about is Arizona. They have the worst expected goals in the league, and to be honest, I'm just not impressed with what I've seen. I think they're better than last year. Clayton Keller's obviously having a good start to the year, but they've got no scoring, they've got no defense, they've got no goaltending. At 28, we have the Blues, and the Blues got beat out 7-0 by Columbus. That alone almost put them way lower on the list. And they lost the next game to Chicago 6-0. They've got bad advanced stats, although slightly better than the teams we've already covered. And right now, they just can't score. I think the team is better than the ones I've already talked about, but if they continue this atrocious play, they keep getting lit up, they'll be moving down next time. So I knew next up there were two teams at 500 that I feel very similar about, Chicago and Montreal. Both teams are very clearly ready for a rebuild, but I think I've been performing above expectations. Ultimately, I decided to put Chicago at 27th and Montreal at 26 because the latter had better underlying advanced and normal stats, and because Montreal has Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki. That being said, on Chicago's end, I'm really happy to see Jonathan Toews having a somewhat bounce-back year. Same with Max Domi. I think Kane will also be gone by trade deadline. That, however, does not figure into the power rankings. All right, at number 25, we have Vancouver. Vancouver obviously went on that record-setting losing streak early on, but I think they really played themselves out of those games. In most of them, they at one point had a 2-goal lead, then collapsed. I also think they have more potential, and they had more expectations going into the season. I just think the team overall could be good. That being said, when it comes to the power rankings, I don't have infinite patience, so if they don't start to improve, they'll be moving right down to the basement where their point percentage probably says they should belong. Next up is Nashville, and this is a case where I've given them a bit of leeway because I haven't got to watch any of their games yet. Their expected goals rate is high, but they're just not scoring. That to me indicates that a little bit of puck luck, and they could have a better record. Right now, they're at 3-6-1. That's really bad. I do like the team, especially with the addition of Ryan McDonagh. If they can make it to the playoffs, which at this point, who knows, I think he'll be a huge help. Roman Yossi's been, well, human, but I just like the team. Forsberg, Duchesne, I think they could do well. All right, next up, Detroit. And honestly, I didn't expect Detroit to be over 500 at this point in the season, but they are. Honestly, I think their record is misleading in that they will be headed down. To me, their core is still young. It needs more time to develop. I don't think that this is certainly a playoff year. They are getting scoring. I don't know if that will keep up, but we'll see. We're sort of getting to the middle point of the list now where there's a bunch of teams that I haven't seen play as much as I would like, or in some cases at all. Specifically, we have the Kraken, Ottawa, Pittsburgh, who I have seen play a lot, Jets, and the Wild. I have the Kraken at 22. For me, their lack of goaltending is just really apparent. They're getting scoring, but not a whole lot else. I honestly thought the team would maybe lack firepower, but they have been scoring, and they're actually scoring across the roster. I then have Ottawa at 21st, Pittsburgh at 20, and this is one, Pittsburgh is on a 6-game losing streak, but I honestly think the team is much better than that. I think this will start to average out pretty soon. Obviously, they just got beat up by Toronto and Boston, but the core that was there last year is pretty much intact. Crosby and Malkin seem like themselves. Rust has played well. I expect Gensel to step up like he did in the playoffs last year and the regular season. I am, however, a bit worried about goaltending. I assume Jari's going to stay as their sort of 1A, but in the games that I've watched, he's not looked great. All right, next, some more teams around the middle, and this is really a toss-up for me. I'm just going to list them. I've got the Jets, the Wild, the Kings, Philly, and Washington. I think I'm a bit biased in how highly I have the Kings placed because Quick looked really good in the games that I've seen. In reality, the Wild and the Jets I haven't seen much of yet this year, but we'll see where they end up. 16 is Philly, as mentioned. This is a team that, again, I think is really thriving under a new system and the sort of John Tortorella impact. I don't think this will last all season. They definitely are hard to play against, though. They're a grinding team. I was really impressed by what I saw when the Rangers played them. However, even though that game was only 1-0, the Rangers could have pretty easily taken that one 4-0. They hit a lot of posts. I think Philly's scoring is probably going to run out if it's not already started to. I've seen them way higher in some rankings. I get that. I just don't think they'll be up where they are for a long time, and that's honestly biasing them lower on my list. The next team I expect to move up a lot by the time the season's over, and that is the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs I actually want to put higher. I think their team is good. I'm worried about their defense. I'm a little worried about their goaltending, but their top two lines are stuffed with so much talent. I think the third line is okay, that I think their scoring is eventually going to get to where it should, but I can't ignore how poorly they've been playing. We've covered this a ton on the channel. Until their game tonight against Philadelphia, they had several games in a row where they were just sloppy. These are sort of just intangible things I'm feeling while watching the game. I do think they'll improve, but for now, this is where I put them. All right, I think this one will be controversial. At 13, I have Buffalo, and I think it'll be controversial because people are putting Buffalo higher in their lists. Tage Thompson has been lighting the league up. I expect him to slow down a little bit. Dahlin has as well, of course. I guess the only thing that's holding me back is it feels like Buffalo didn't change as much as the record would indicate, but you know what? They've beaten Calgary, Edmonton, they demolished Detroit 8-3. They've honestly struggled more against the lower tier teams, and I'm just curious to see how well they hold up as the year progresses. I'm a little worried about the goaltending as well. Florida, I haven't seen them play much, but their underlying advanced Corsi and expected goals for stats are very good. Some players I'm definitely expecting to see pick up the scoring. Hornquist, Bennett, they're all struggling early on, but many of them are young, and I suspect they'll turn things around. Based on the stats, again, I haven't really seen them play. Spencer Knight's been playing well, but he's not getting a whole lot of action early on. All right, the Islanders. This is a team that I think everyone knows dramatically underperformed last year due to a variety of factors, not really in their control. Sorokin's been a bit of an animal. I saw that firsthand when he shut the Rangers out. I'm a bit more worried about their scoring, but I do think it will come through. All right, at number 10, we have the New York Rangers. This is my team, and I've actually lowered them a bit just to be, cognizant of that fact. The Rangers had a really bad stretch of 4 losses, including the aforementioned shootout against the Islanders. They did beat Dallas, but also won close wins against Philly and the Coyotes, 2 lower teams. However, they're the only team, maybe Toronto as well, that I can say I've watched all of their games, and I honestly feel like some of their underperformance so far, if you can call it that, I mean, they're still 6-3-2, can be explained away by puck luck. Their shooting percentage during that losing streak was phenomenally low, so it was bound to turn around, and it has now. I'll be really curious to see how they play against Boston tomorrow. All right, next up we have Tampa. Steven Stamkos is having a great year. He's leading the league in power play goals. Honestly, for me, I couldn't put Tampa lower than 10 just because I know despite how they perform in the regular season, they will turn it on come playoffs. Vasi's save percentage is, I think, unrealistically low. That'll come up, and I think their wins will as well. Also, once Big Rig gets going, it's game over. I also didn't want to put Colorado lower, but I am a little concerned about them. They're definitely missing Kadri and what he contributed to the goal scoring, and as a Rangers fan who's seen a lot of Georgiev, I really don't think he should be a Stanley Cup contender's starting goalie. Still, I do suspect they'll score more than they have so far. All right, New Jersey. New Jersey's performance this year has probably been the most shocking out of any NHL team besides Philadelphia, who went from historically bad to all right. But you know what? I remember hearing last year that New Jersey's advanced stats were good, and if they could get some goaltending, that they would win games. Well, right now, New Jersey has a goal differential of 11. They've got the highest expected goals for in the entire league. Their Corsi is great. I don't know. The only thing that's keeping me from putting them higher, I guess, is my expectations. Dallas, this is a case where I've seen quite a few Dallas games, and I'm super impressed with their play so far, especially that of Ottinger. Now, he is, of course, injured. Seems like it's a fairly short-term thing, but he was, before going down, I think, the best goalie in the NHL. And I mean, based on stats, that's not really a controversial thing to say, especially going back to his playoff run last year. And this isn't what I expected. You guys know that I was pretty harsh on Dallas earlier this season. I didn't like the construction of their team, but they're proving me wrong. Tyler Seguin's been having a good year. Jason Robertson's a star, so I guess we'll see. At number 5, I have Edmonton. This one is simple. When Edmonton plays their game, they're almost impossible to stop. We've seen that a few times. McDavid and Draisaitl just take over as they always have. It seems like they're doing so more consistently. I also think that Kane has looked really good. The question for me, as it seems like is always the case with Edmonton, is what's going to happen with the goalies. I don't think Jack Campbell was what they needed. Stuart Skinner's actually taken over recently, and they've been riding him. He's been really hot, but he's only got 4 games played this season. I don't think that's really statistically significant enough to indicate that he's going to be this good all year. At number 4, we have Carolina, and this is sort of a case where Carolina, to me, is one of the most boring teams to watch in the NHL. I wonder a bit about Freddie Anderson, but there's no doubting that they can score. Their core of Svechnikov, Nichis, and Aho is very young, so I do wonder whether they might need a bit more time to reach their true potential, but hey, they're playing well this year, so who am I to question that? At number 3, I have Calgary. They recently, of course, lost a game to the Kraken. They lost part 2 of the Battle of Alberta. That being said, I think Calgary is just such a good all-around team. I actually like them more now with Kadri, Huberdeau, and Weegar. And you know what? I'm a guy who loves Lucic. I don't think he's a true game changer, but he just brings such a unique component to the team that I can't help but love it. I also think Huberdeau's got even more in store as the year continues. Alright, so this is going to be controversial, but at number 2, despite their excellent record, I have Boston. And I know, they just absolutely schooled Pittsburgh and looked like the best team in the NHL. What's more, their team's not been completely healthy yet. Marchand missed the early season. McAvoy is still not back. Krejci is missing time. I think they'll be great, but I don't think they'll be as good as they are now. And I don't think they're as good overall as the number 1 team in the NHL, Las Vegas. Vegas is coming off 2 really flashy OT wins, the second best point percentage in the NHL, and I feel like their play overall is just more sustainable at the high level it's at. I will also admit they haven't had the hardest schedule early on, but I've just been impressed overall by how they played, and I think this is the year that Jack Eichel comes back with an absolute force. He's already at 12 points in 11 games. I think he's going to keep that pace up and improve on it for the rest of the year. For me, the big question is obviously goaltending. Right now, they've got 2 relatively inexperienced goalies in Aiden Hill and Logan Thompson. They're playing, however, super well as a tandem, and you know what? We've seen enough games that I think it's meaningful. However, that's all just my opinion. Please let me know what you disagree with. I hope that I was pretty transparent where I felt like I lacked knowledge about certain teams or I had a disproportionate amount of knowledge at other times, but let me know what you think as I mentioned down below. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, guys. Until next time, if you enjoyed this video, drop a like, subscribe. If you really want to catch new uploads early, click the bell button, and if you can just watch videos, it helps the channel grow. That's all I want for you. Watch the videos. You don't need to follow me on Patreon or Twitter or wherever else. Just watch the videos and I'll be happy.